Okay, so in this video we're going to go over proportions and rates. Okay. Sorry about that, running out of ink here. Proportions and rates. Okay, so we'll start first with a rate. All right, so what is a rate? And so we probably encounter rates in our lives, right? Going grocery shopping or buying gas or anything like that, right? So a rate is simply a fraction of two quantities. Okay, so that is very much all it is, right? So if you're comparing two quantities, right, a lot of times we're used to encountering rates that deal with money, right? So for instance, something is $4.99 per 1 pound. All right, so that's an example of a rate. Or let's say you've measured in your car that on 14 gallons you can go, let's say, 300 miles. Or let's say for 4 cups water, you can use 2 cups rice. These are all examples of rates. All right. Now, in particular, when the denominator is 1, like it is here, this is an example of something called a unit rate. All right, so what distinguishes this from the other rates is that the denominator is 1, right? So a unit rate occurs when the denominator is 1. Right, now you can change a rate that isn't a unit rate into a unit rate by simply doing the division, right? If you see 4 divided by 2, right, that is 2. So in the numerator, I can write 2 cups water. Right here, let me actually write down here, right? So here we have 4 cups water per 2 cups rice. Right, so while this is not a unit rate, I can change it by doing the division, right? 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that number stays in the numerator, right? And that is 2. And the units themselves, those remain the same, those do not change. 4 cups water over 1 cup rice. And now we have a unit rate, right? And in doing this division, we don't really change the quantity here, so these two quantities are actually equal to each other, right? Even though the numbers are different here, right? Units across are the same, right? This is just reduced into a unit rate, right? And the value of it is the same, right? Now what we have here, right, when we have two rates equal to each other, this equation has a special name, right? This is what we call a proportion. Oh my god, I'm having trouble writing. Proportion. All right, so proportion is when we have two rates equal to each other. All right. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna solve some basic proportion problems. There's no kind of story, no word problem. We're just gonna go over the kind of the mechanics of solving these types of problems, right? The process here, right? So a basic proportion problem would look something like this, right? So we'll be asked to solve for some unknown variable. So let's say we're asked solve for x, right? And here we have x over 2 equals to 7 over 8. Okay. All right, so here we have a proportion, right, where we have two rates, right? Even though we don't have the units, right, if it's in a fraction, we can think of it as a rate representing some kind of quantities, right? And in a later video, we'll see if we had a kind of word problem, right, how to set up a proportion doing that. But for now, we're just going to look at how do I solve for x here. So when we have something set up like this where we have two ratios, two rates set equal to each other, we're going to take the same steps every single time, right? As long as it has one fraction equal to another fraction, what we can do is we can cross multiply. All right, take the denominator, multiply across the equal sign, so we get 8 times x, and then we get 2 times 7, 14. Okay, so we always do that, right? And in doing that step, what happens is we eliminate the fraction, right? And now we just have an equation in one variable, right? My variable here being x. Right, and the next step to do is whatever that coefficient, the number in front of the x, you just divide by it. All right, and x is equal to 14 over 8. All right, now unless specified, I always want to reduce my fractions. So 2 goes into both of these, so we have 7 over 4. Okay, so this is good enough. That's my answer. Unless you're asked, give an answer in decimal form. Always leave it as a fraction in lowest terms. All right, how do I know it's in lowest terms? There's no other number that goes into 7 or 4, right? As in here, they're both even, so I know 2 goes into both of them. So I divide 14 by 2 to give me 7, and 8 by 2 to give me 4, right? And that doesn't change it, right? As long as you divide the same number by the numerator and the denominator. All right, let's try one more problem here, where again, all we're doing is we're solving a basic proportion problem. Right, so here, let's say our proportion is 6 over x equals to 4 over 8. Okay. All right. Okay, so again, no matter where the variable shows up, numerator, denominator, that is not going to change my process here. All right, so I want to cross multiply here, so I'll get x times 4, so we'll get 4x on one side. Again, doesn't matter what side it is, it's an equality, right? So 4 times x is 4x, right? 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, and again, notice, right, these all are going to become very repetitive, right? Once you have this set up, cross multiply, then it's from here, it's like the exact same steps. Okay, we have 4x equals 48. Simply divide both sides by the coefficient here in front of the x, which in this case is 4. That reduces to 1, so we're left with simply 1x or x. And over here, 48 divided by 4 is going to be 12. And there we go. That is our solution. Okay, so that is how you solve proportions. All right, so now we'll take a look in the next video is how to solve some application problems that will require setting up proportions.